Do you all remember this image? If you don't, it's okay. This was an image circulating around the XRP community a few years back. I believe that it first started to really kind of cycle around back in like 2020. But essentially it was a, big, square, and every single one of these dots represented a specific amount of people. But we have up in the top right, a little square section, which was people who have heard of crypto, who own crypto, who heard of XRP, who own XRP, and own greater than 25,000 XRP. Now, today, I don't know what this chart actually looks like, but one thing that I am very certain about is the fact that even though we are continuing to see crypto grow and expand and become a much bigger piece of the retail sector, one thing is clear. They are getting fed the hype machine. They're getting fed Bitcoin and meme coins and, gaming tokens and this and that. They're not getting told utility-based projects are the thing that's going to make them very wealthy, which is a fact. I strongly believe that over the course of the next couple weeks and months ahead, we will continue to see institutional adoption grow. We're going to see legislation around stablecoins and even crypto itself really kind of become a reality. I do think that we're going to see all the obstacles really kind of cleared for crypto to be plug and played within the global financial system and the system itself. And I do think that a lot of great projects like XRP are going to make many individuals very, very wealthy. Now, a question that I always get around XRP is, how much XRP should I be holding? How much is enough? This is a question that I have made videos on in the past as well. But today it's a little bit different because obviously the entire market has changed a bit. And what I mean by that is I more so mean price action has changed. Today, XRP is no longer a 20 or 30 or 40 or even a 50-cent project. It is a $2 plus cryptocurrency. And this is where things change a little bit because, how much XRP is enough? Well, if I say 50,000 today, all of a sudden that sounds ridiculous because 50,000 XRP would cost you at this current price $107,000. Now, if we go back in time and we go back to, like, for an example, we'll just say 2022, right? If we actually zoom out on this chart and we go back to just 2022, we'll go back to the whole year of 2022, right? Your overall price action here, you could have been buying XRP at sub 40 cents. We'll just say 40 cents itself, right? So 50,000 XRP would have cost you about $20,000. Now, I know that that sounds like me saying, oh yeah, $20,000, everyone has that to just, invest. No, I'm saying it would have cost you $20,000 compared to over $107,000. That's the big difference here. So things have changed. And what's funny about this is, I recently, looked through my Google Sheets because I do Google Sheets for a lot of these videos. And I made a Google Sheets a very long time ago. And you could see that at the time that I made this Google Sheets, XRP was at 38 cents because 10,000 XRP would have cost you about $3,800. Now, to a lot of people, that's actually an amount that's reasonable. You could invest $3,800 in a single year. Because again, you don't have to do it all at one time. You could do it over that, over the course of like a year, for an example. So every single month you could invest a certain amount. But 50,000 XRP would have cost you about almost 20K. 100,000 would have cost you about almost 40K. How different this space looks today. But even then, I said, how much XRP do you need? It's a question. And a lot of people have this question. The thing is that nobody's going to have a specific answer. I will say this. The best thing that I could tell anyone around this space, it doesn't even have to pertain to XRP. It could be anything. It could be, Bitcoin, Ethereum. It could be, ADA, HBAR, XLM. Any crypto project that you are looking at, that you see value in, that you think is going to be very successful in the future, why not just set up a weekly buy order? I mean, think about it. If you set up a weekly buy order on an amount that you can afford, that you're not going to be, concerned about, and you're not going to be worried about at all. And you just have that weekly buy order keep hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. And you just leave it go. Over the course of, we'll say 2 to 5 years, I strongly believe that you will be very happy with what you have in your account. Because not only is, your money actually working for you, because this is an investment, right? You're also, avoiding inflation eating away at your savings. But this allows you to have a weekly buy order, to have an investment on the side, continuing to grow from the money you invest, but also from the gains as well. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about having a set amount of XRP, because I don't think that we should be dead set on, oh, I think that I need to hold 10,000 of this coin and 100,000 of this coin. I think that the whole idea of how much should you actually hold, it's all relative to your overall environment and your overall financial well-being. Everyone has completely different, ways of looking at investments because of their financial situation. Some people could, for an example, buy 100,000 XRP right now and they would be fine. While others, they could only invest about, $100 or $500 or maybe even $1,000. Everyone's situation is different. So there's not a one size fits all answer to this question of how much XRP do you need? But the reason why I say that I think everyone shouldn't worry about how much XRP that they're holding. Instead, I think that you should set up a, weekly buy order or even a monthly buy order. The reason why I say this is because look at the stats. All right, Good Morning Crypto recently posted this on X, and it was, 8 billion people are alive today. 6.7 billion people have a smartphone. 5.5 billion people use the internet. Only 562 million people own crypto. Think about that. That's almost 7% of the world's population that owns digital assets. And I would argue that a large portion of that percentage does not hold XRP. They're probably holding Bitcoin or Dogecoin or, Shiba Inu or some meme coins, maybe even Ethereum. But for the most part, I do think that there's a very, very small percentage of the global population that is actually holding XRP. And we have the rich list. I mean, listen, if we really look at the rich list, it gives us a little bit of a breakdown of the number of XRP wallets out there. There's 6.5 million wallets out there. Now, see, this is the problem, okay? A lot of people will say, oh, well, if there's 6.5 people that hold XRP, I'm no longer early. First off, it's 6.5 million compared to 8 billion people out there in the world. It's 6.5 million compared to 562 million people who actually own crypto. But also remember this, that 6.5 million and the wallets associated with it are probably way less significant than you actually think. Because this number, the 6.5 million, I would argue cut that in half. Maybe, cut it into a quarter. I think that the amount of actual XRP wallets out there is much less significant than we are being led on to believe. I would argue that there's probably maybe 3 million. Again, I want to cut it in half. So we'll say like 3.2 million actual wallets out there. Because how many of you hold, 3, 4, 5 different wallets? Cold storage wallets, hot wallets. I mean, these numbers are so skewed, we don't actually know the facts here. But one thing to me that I find crazy is that the percentage, right? To get into like the top 1% or the top 2%. I mean, even in the top 5%, 8,900 XRP. It's crazy to see some of these numbers. It's crazy to see how much XRP you would need to hold to hit some of these percentage brackets. It just goes to show you how actually early we are. I mean, think about Amazon, right? Amazon stock or even Tesla stock or Apple stock. Like, imagine how much stock you would actually have to hold to get into like the top 10%, the top 5%, the top 1%, and how much money you would actually need. I'm not saying that $200,000 is, insignificant. I'm just saying that, to get into like the 0.5% bracket here, that's a crazy small amount of money to get into like the 0.5% bracket compared to like traditional stocks or asset classes. It shows us how early we are, which is exactly why I personally think that, that question of how much XRP is enough. The thing is that nobody's going to be happy with the amount that they hold. I guarantee you right now, there's probably a lot of people saying that I wish that I bought so much more XRP during this time or during this time. Because now that XRP is up significantly. We are up over 1,090% from the lows of 2022 to the highs recently. We are up currently 645% off of the lows of 2022 to our current price of XRP. And we are up in just the candle body, the candle wick here actually, from October to our current price, almost 340%. So many people are probably wishing that they bought more at 30 cents, at 40 cents, at 50 cents. This is exactly why I don't think anyone should have a set amount of, XRP or HBAR or, QNT that they are willing to buy. I think that we should set up weekly or monthly buy orders and forget it. Move it to cold storage, move it into a safe, space, and just forget about how much you're buying every single month. Because over time, you will be very happy. I mean, think about it like this, okay? I don't know what the average would be, but imagine starting to invest when we see a massive sell-off, and you are investing throughout this entire time frame over 2,374 days. Okay? 2,374 days. You're investing every single month. Okay? I don't know how much, people would be willing to put in, but we'll say on average, this is about 79 months, right? Say for so you bought, we'll say 1,000 XRP every single month. You would have 79,000 XRP. And at today's price, that's over $169,000. And I'm sure XRP is going to go much higher. I'm just giving you guys, some example of why I think that investing every single month in this space it's very smart. Number one. Number two, it does lower your average. At times, yes, it could definitely affect your average. And of course, you control it. You don't have to buy every single month. You could see, how the month is looking and say, all right, well, things are pumping, things are pretty high. I'm going to avoid this month. But the overall idea here is to accumulate as much as you possibly can, while things are still pretty boring, stagnant. Like during this entire sideways move here, that took over 2,100 plus days. And we could even argue, we can go from the all-time high. 2,373 days of just sideways pressure, the failed breakout back in 2021. We had so much time to accumulate so much XRP. And the question is today, for those that are actually late, is it too late to buy XRP? It's not. You could always average down, but you could always add a monthly buy order. You could always add a weekly buy order. The number one way to really kind of look at this space right now is we are at a $3 trillion market cap for crypto. The total entire market, $3 trillion. Tokenization is at $22 billion. The names that are tokenizing in this space have over $20 trillion plus in assets under management already. The markets that they are trying to bring on chain are in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. In my opinion, we are extremely early. So even investing at the highs of today, I still think that we make that money back even if we go into a bear market tomorrow. It's very similar to Bitcoin, right? Like for example, if we actually look at Bitcoin and we're just looking at this chart, let me clear it up a little bit. If we're looking at this chart and say for so you invest it at the all-time highs of 2021, okay? Now granted, it took 1,278 days. You could even argue that it took actually 1,096 days. And if you actually look at the price here, you know, to that high wick, you were actually up 58%. And even today, you're still up over 40, plus percent. It might have taken 1,000 plus days to actually get to that point, but you're still in profit, even if you bought at the all-time highs. And I suspect that this is going to be the same for a lot of these utility-based projects that have real-world use case value tied to them. So to answer the question of how much XRP do you actually need? Number one, I would say as much as you could afford to lose. Number two, I would say don't set yourself up to have just one target and you hit that target and you give up buying. Because I would rather have my money work for me and have the potential of, making 3, 4, 5, 10 plus X return on that money than just sitting there collecting dust and losing value to inflation. But also number three, and probably one of the biggest things, no matter the amount of XRP you have, doesn't matter how much you're holding, you will always want to have more when the prices start to pump. And we see this happen every single time. So the number one thing that I could say to you is that when things are getting boring, when things are getting frustrating, when things are stagnant in this market and the prices are down significantly, use that time for your advantage to accumulate more, stack your bags on the lows. That way, when we start to move again to the upside, you're not, that unhappy with your bag. But I would also say that right now we are extremely early around this tech. We are just starting to see legislation catching up. We're just starting to see the US catching up. And I suspect that the entire world will soon wake up to how big crypto will be. And I think that that's when these rich list, stats change significantly. The value of these assets change significantly. And that's when we start to see like 1,000 XRP or 5,000 XRP or even 10,000 XRP becoming extremely hard to actually buy and hold. So with that being said, I hope that guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.